When Elena, the glamorous CEO, brought her boyfriend Sebastian Vale home, I was just walking out of the kitchen, holding a spatula in one hand and a pot in the other, about to ask what they wanted for dinner. But Sebastian pointed straight at me and snapped. I knew those soap operas were based on real life. I go to California for 3 months and you hire a lookalike to keep around the house? I looked down at myself, white chef's coat, spatula still warm from the pan. A what now? No one told me I was supposed to be a body double. Before I could process any of it, Sebastian kept going. No wonder you barely called or texted the whole time I was gone. You had a new fling the minute I left. Out with the old, huh? And now I'm back, and you still can't bring yourself to let him go? Fine. I'll save you the trouble. I'm out. Enjoy your new guy. He stormed off, furious, while I stood frozen like someone had just smacked me upside the head with my own frying pan. Wait, what is happening? This isn't the plot I signed up for. I was hired to be Elena's private chef, for crying out loud. $8 million a year to cook her meals in a luxury mansion. That's it. No drama. No disguises. No romantic entanglements. And now I'm someone's replacement lover? Even Elena couldn't help but frown. Sebastian, what are you even talking about? She said, voice laced with disbelief. I flew out to see you every single week while you were in California. How exactly is that ignoring you? She gestured toward me. And this is Ethan, our chef. Not whatever weird theory you've got going on. Sebastian's eyes filled with tears. One slid dramatically down his cheek. A chef, he echoed, voice trembling. What kind of chef looks like that? He's young. He wears white. I like wearing white. He's clearly a stand-in, why are you lying to me? I glanced down at my white double-breasted chef's coat, then up at Sebastian's white silk shirt. Yeah, the only thing we had in common was that our clothes came from the same color palette. White. That was it. And somehow that had spiraled into a full-blown identity crisis. I let out a slow breath and finally spoke. Mr. Vale, I am the chef. If you don't believe me, check the kitchen, there's a whole lineup of prepped ingredients waiting for tonight's dinner. But Sebastian clapped his hands over his ears like a stubborn child. I don't want to hear it. Even if there is food, that's just part of the ruse, something you two cooked up to deceive me. Elena rubbed her temples, clearly at her limit. Then tell me, she said, exasperated, what would it take for you to believe Ethan is just our chef? Sebastian raised his chin with righteous indignation. Fire him. If you send him away, I'll believe you. I won't share this house with my replacement. Sooner or later, people fall for the stand-in, and I'm not waiting around for that to happen. I don't want to lose you, Elena. So he has to go. Elena's brow furrowed even deeper. She hesitated, then looked at me. Her stomach had only recently begun to heal, and that was thanks to my cooking. She relied on me for every meal, there was no way she could go back to eating takeout or bland hospital diets now. But clearly, Sebastian wasn't backing down either. After a tense pause, Elena finally made a decision. She walked toward me and said in a low voice. Ethan. I know we agreed on a live-in arrangement, but given the circumstances, would you mind moving into the penthouse apartment nearby? We'll cover double your commute costs, and I'll add 3 extra months' salary as compensation. Sound fair? My eyes lit up instantly. Elena's penthouse apartment was only 5 minutes from the estate. And now? I was not only getting double the commuting allowance, I was also pocketing 3 months' salary as a bonus. Honestly? Total win. I nodded without hesitation. Of course, Miss Sterling. Should I start packing now? I was already pulling out my phone to call a moving company. Elena blinked, visibly caught off guard. She hadn't expected me to agree so easily, or maybe so cheerfully. Something flickered across her expression. She opened her mouth to say something, but in the end, she just nodded. Yes, go ahead and move. The moving truck arrived fast. I directed the crew as they began loading up my things. Right then, Sebastian strutted over like he'd just won a war. Chin high, eyes smug, voice full of victory as he looked down at me. Ethan, so what if you wormed your way in while I was in California? At the end of the day, you're still the one getting kicked out. Elena only has room in her heart for me. No matter how hard you try, a stand-in will always be a stand-in. Just as he finished his speech, I got a notification from the bank. Incoming wire transfer, $2 million. Compensation. The numbers lit up my phone screen like fireworks, practically knocking the breath out of me. And just like that, the man responsible for all this, Sebastian, suddenly didn't seem quite so insufferable. In fact, I almost found him endearing. I flashed a smile and nodded agreeably. Absolutely. No doubt you're the one who matters most to Ms. Sterling. I wouldn't dream of comparing. Sebastian gave a smug little scoff. Good. You know your place. With his head held high, he strutted off again. A moment later, I overheard Grace, the house manager, ask politely. Mr. Vale, do you have a preference for which room you'd like to stay in? Without hesitation, he declared. Obviously I'll be staying in that room, the one Elena decorated with photos of me. The one she keeps locked so she can miss me in peace. Grace paused. I don't believe such a room exists, sir. His voice immediately jumped an octave. Of course it exists. In every drama, when the boyfriend goes away, the CEO girlfriend always keeps a secret room, locked up, full of photos of him, no one allowed inside. If you don't know about it, just say so. Don't pretend it's not real. I didn't catch the rest. His voice faded into the distance as he launched into a full-on monologue. I just shook my head and sighed quietly, for Grace, mostly. Poor woman. Life at the penthouse apartment was surprisingly relaxing. Aside from sneaking into the main estate 3 times a day, coordinated with Grace to avoid Sebastian's line of sight so I could quietly cook for Elena, my days were blissfully easy. I was looking healthier than ever. Grace, on the other hand, was visibly deteriorating. During another one of our covert kitchen rendezvous, I finally asked her. Grace, has it been that hectic at the estate lately? You look like you haven't slept in days. She let out a soul-weary sigh. Don't get me started. Mr. Vale is driving me absolutely insane. The first day he moved in, he demanded that Ms. Sterling fire me, because I didn't tell him he was the first man she'd ever brought home. The next day, he asked if she'd been miserable without him, said he needed to know if she smiled at all while he was away. I showed him a press photo from that interview 2 days ago, you know, the one where she was smiling politely. He smashed my phone. It was like a dam broke. Grace unloaded a week's worth of Sebastian-induced trauma, venting every single petty drama he'd put her through. And honestly, it was a lot. Watching Grace unleash her rant like a broken dam, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of relief. Thank God I'd moved into the penthouse on day 1. If I'd had to live under the same roof as Sebastian Vale, I'd probably be shaving years off my life by now. But clearly, I'd celebrated too soon. Barely 2 days into my peaceful new routine, the penthouse doorbell started ringing like a damn fire alarm. I opened the door, and Sebastian bulldozed his way in without waiting for an invite. He strutted around the apartment like a peacock claiming new territory, eyes darting over every corner, soaking in the space. Finally, he crossed his arms and sneered. No wonder you left so cheerfully. Elena didn't kick you out, she relocated you. Got a whole secret place set up for her little side piece, huh? I felt a vein twitch in my forehead. I just wanted him gone. Mr. Vale, I am just a chef. If you need proof, I can show you my employment contract. I pulled the paperwork from a drawer and handed it to him. His eyes locked onto the salary line, and his pupils practically dilated. $8 million. He let out a bitter laugh, snatching the contract and slapping it down onto the table like it had personally offended him. No chef makes that kind of money. Let's call it what it is, this is a sugar baby agreement. That hit a nerve. I worked hard. I earned every cent with my own hands and my own knives. To call it anything else? That wasn't just rude, it was downright insulting. I'd had enough. Grabbing my phone, I dialed Elena on the spot. Ms. Sterling, could you please do something about Sebastian? There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line. He came to your place? A pause. Put him on. I shoved the phone towards Sebastian. He rolled his eyes like this was all beneath him, but took the call anyway. At first, he wore his usual smug, condescending look. Then his expression started to shift. By the time Elena finished talking, his face had darkened like a thundercloud. He threw me a vicious glare, muttered, "Got it," into the phone, and hung up. Then, chin raised, ego fully intact, he turned back to me with theatrical flair. Looks like you got lucky today. But don't get comfortable. Elena's blinded by whatever charm you've managed to fake, but it won't last. She'll see soon enough that a knockoff will never measure up to the original. With that, he spun on his heel and stormed out. The door slammed so hard behind him it rattled the artwork on the wall. I stared at it for a long moment, seriously considering asking Elena for some kind of hazard pay. To avoid another unwanted drop-in, I decided not to set foot near the estate for the next few days. Instead, I packed every meal into bento boxes and sent them over with Grace for Elena. But when Grace showed up again, this time with the empty containers, she also handed me something else. A gold-embossed invitation. To Sebastian Vale's birthday party. The second I read his name in that fancy script, my temples started throbbing. I was just about to decline when Grace added. Ms. Sterling said if you show up, she'll authorize 10 times your overtime rate. She looked at me like I just won the lottery. My attitude flipped on a dime. Come on, Grace. No need to talk about pay. If Ms. Sterling needs me, I'm there. The party was being held at Elena's estate. By the time I arrived, Sebastian was already at the grand piano, playing something slow and dramatic. A soft spotlight fell across his shoulders, casting him in a surprisingly human light for once. As I stepped into the room, a few of the local elites, the kind of people who read Forbes for leisure, started making their way over. Mr. Navarro, are you handling the menu tonight? What a treat. Navarro, any plans to change clients? My mother's been craving your duck confit like a woman possessed. That's when the piano music stopped dead. All heads turned instinctively toward Sebastian. He stood from the bench, grabbed the microphone, and stared straight at the growing crowd around me, his eyes practically spitting fire. Let me introduce myself, he said, voice sharp. I'm Elena's boyfriend. The man you're all fawning over? Just a background prop. A knockoff. A stand-in. Suck up to whoever you want, but make sure you're sucking up to the right person, or you'll regret it. The room fell awkwardly silent. People exchanged puzzled glances, and then they simply turned back to me. Anyway, Navarro, I was hoping you'd share that mushroom risotto recipe my chef tried and failed 3 times. And are you still sourcing from that boutique farm upstate? Sebastian stood frozen, mic in hand, completely ignored. Sebastian was convinced I'd spent his time away charming everyone into my corner. He was fuming, but then something shifted in his eyes. A spark of malice lit up his face as if he'd just remembered a hidden card up his sleeve. Straightening his suit jacket, he walked toward me, all smiles, his tone syrupy sweet with mock politeness. I played a decent piece just now, he said loud enough for others to hear, but word is that Mr. Navarro is the real virtuoso at the piano. Why don't you treat us to a song? He paused dramatically. Unless, of course, you think we're not worth the effort? He delivered the line like he was setting a bear trap. Sebastian already knew the truth. He'd done his homework. Ethan Navarro was tone-deaf. Couldn't read sheet music to save his life. Getting me up on that stage would be like throwing a butcher into a ballet. And once I publicly embarrassed myself, he figured Elena would finally realize that stand-in shared nothing in common with the original. He was practically salivating at the thought. But I didn't even blink. You heard wrong, I said calmly. I don't play piano at all. His smirk vanished. He stared at me, stunned. You're just gonna say that? He asked, incredulous. In every drama, the stand-in at least tries. Even if they suck, they pretend. Why aren't you pretending? By the end, he was practically unraveling, his whole worldview crumbling in real time. This party had been Sebastian's masterstroke, his carefully laid trap to humiliate me in front of Elena and her elite circle. And now, with his plan falling apart, his face flushed crimson. Right on cue, Elena walked in, having just wrapped up a call. She noticed his red cheeks immediately and hurried over. What's wrong? She asked, concerned. Sebastian wasted no time. He grabbed her hand like a wounded child. Elena, Ethan bullied me. Elena's brow furrowed as she looked at me. I threw both hands up defensively. I didn't lay a finger on him. The guests around us immediately jumped in, explaining the situation from all angles, some amused, some exasperated. Elena rubbed her temples, clearly exhausted. Just go play something, she muttered. I'll triple your overtime. Make it 20 times. My face lit up. Absolutely, Ms. Sterling. I strolled over to the grand piano and, without hesitation, slammed my fingers randomly across the keys. The sound was painful. Jarring. Like a catfight on a chalkboard. A far cry from Sebastian's carefully rehearsed piece. He lit up like it was Christmas morning. His grin stretched ear to ear as he scanned the room, waiting for the laughter, the whispers, the scorn. But the crowd? They clinked glasses, chatted amongst themselves, utterly unfazed. Sebastian sprang to his feet, visibly shaken. Why aren't you mocking him? He demanded. Call him out. Say he's low-class, uncultured, not fit for this room. One guest blinked at him, confused. He just can't play the piano. That's hardly a crime. Another chimed in. Yeah, it's not like piano skills are some universal benchmark for human worth. Navarro may not play piano, but his food? Michelin level. Everyone's got blind spots. Nobody's perfect. But Sebastian wasn't done. What's the point of coming to a party like this if not to laugh at someone else's failure? He snapped. Isn't that what you're all here for? So why won't you laugh? The room went still. Even the champagne bubbles popping in flutes felt too loud in the silence that followed. Then a man in a tailored charcoal suit let out a short, cold laugh. So that's what this is? We're just props for Mr. Vale's little performance? If that's the case, I'd rather not stick around and be part of the embarrassment. With that, he stood. And just like that, the rest followed, quietly, decisively. No amount of polite coaxing from Elena could stop the slow exodus. One by one, her guests slipped away, leaving behind half-empty glasses and a ruined evening. Elena looked like she had a migraine pulsing behind both eyes. Sebastian, oblivious to the damage, kept ranting. Let them leave. I'm Elena's boyfriend. Offend us, and I'll make sure their contracts are torn up by morning. That sealed it. The few remaining guests cast him uneasy glances, like he was a lunatic with a loaded gun, and then they, too, made for the exits without another word. What had been an elegant, high-society affair now lay in ruins, awkward silence, broken energy, and embarrassment humming in the air. I turned to leave quietly, not wanting to add to the wreckage. But Sebastian suddenly grabbed my wrist. "You can't go." His voice cracked, manic and panicked. "Elena, this whole disaster, it's his fault. Ethan wanted to humiliate me. You have to punish him." Elena turned to face him. Her expression was ice. Gone was the polished restraint she usually wore in public. What remained was quiet, seething disappointment, undeniable and sharp. It filled the space between them like a chasm. "Sebastian, can you please stop?" Elena's voice was strained, her composure cracking. "What happened to you? When did you become this version of yourself?" Sebastian's face went pale. "You're saying this because of him?" he snapped, voice rising. "You're defending your little stand-in over me? Don't act like I've changed, you're the one who's different." He jabbed a finger toward me. "Looks like you've made your choice. Just don't come crying when you regret it." With that, he snatched his coat off the back of a chair and stormed out of the house. I let out a slow sigh, then gave Elena a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. "Tough night." I paused. "Also, don't forget to send that overtime bonus to my account." I turned to leave, ready to finally escape this disaster. But then I saw her. Elena was standing there, pale as a ghost, one hand clenched tightly over her stomach. A familiar look of pain flashed across her face, her stomach condition, back with a vengeance. So much for a clean exit. I rushed to her side, helped her onto the couch, then headed to the kitchen without another word. I knew exactly what ingredients she could tolerate, and within minutes I had something on the stove that would soothe the worst of it. I stayed the entire night, making sure she had food, water, rest. By morning, her color had returned and the pain had finally eased. I stretched, glanced at the clock, and headed for the door. But just as I opened it, I saw Sebastian standing outside, loitering awkwardly at the gate. He was clearly waiting. Waiting for Elena to come find him. Waiting for someone to fix what he'd broken. But when she never came, he didn't know how to walk back in. The moment he saw me, Sebastian's face twisted in disbelief. "I leave for one night, and Elena immediately calls you to stay with her?" He let out a bitter laugh. "Ethan, I underestimated you. You're more calculating than I thought. But don't get too comfortable, I've got plenty of ways to deal with people like you." I didn't bother responding. Talking to Sebastian felt like voluntarily lowering my IQ. I was done playing this game. I turned to go. But before I could take a step, Sebastian suddenly bolted past me and into the house like he'd just made some life-changing decision. "Elena," he called out. "I spent the night thinking about everything, and you're right. I messed up. I also realize Ethan matters to you. I won't try to push him out anymore. I just want you to forgive me." Elena was clearly surprised by the sudden change of tone. Her expression softened almost instantly. "If you can finally see things clearly," she said gently, "then that's all I could ask for." Then she turned to me. "Ethan, why don't you move back into the estate? I could really use your help right now." I knew she was referring to her health, the recurring stomach flare-ups. But Sebastian, of course, heard something else entirely. His jaw clenched as he stared at her, stunned that she didn't even try to correct the misunderstanding. And when she didn't, his face went ghost white. The betrayal in his eyes was unmistakable as he looked at me, like I'd somehow won a war he didn't even realize he'd already lost. But then, just as quickly, he plastered on a smile. One of those tight, dangerous ones that didn't reach the eyes. And that's when my gut twisted. Whatever he was planning next, it wasn't going to be peaceful. While I was busy walking on eggshells, Grace had apparently found a kindred spirit. Every day, she found an excuse to sneak into the kitchen and whisper fresh complaints about Sebastian. One afternoon, right as she'd finished one of her rants, a voice cut through the air behind us. "Elena, look at this. Ethan's already taking your money, and now he's cozying up to other women in your own kitchen." His tone dripped with accusation, and when he said money, he wasn't talking about salary. He meant hush-hush sugar baby cash. Elena didn't catch the subtext, but her brow still creased instinctively. She turned to Grace with a frown. "Grace, I know you handle the household, but you need to maintain professional boundaries." Grace let out a sheepish laugh and quickly backed out of the kitchen. Sebastian, meanwhile, glared at me like a kicked puppy. Apparently, the fact that Elena had only scolded Grace and not me was yet another unforgivable sin. Later that day, I was in the kitchen prepping lunch, nothing unusual, until Sebastian stormed in out of nowhere and grabbed my knife off the counter. "That's enough, Ethan," he shouted. "Today's the day you get kicked out of the Sterling house for good." Before I could even react, he stabbed himself in the side. Or at least, that's what it looked like at first. But I saw it. The small slit in his shirt. The tube hidden beneath it. The fake blood oozing from the pouch strapped to his waist. "Ah," he howled dramatically. "The pain. I was just trying to help you chop vegetables, and you stabbed me." Elena came flying down the stairs at the sound of the commotion. She caught Sebastian just as he collapsed into her arms like a dying opera singer. Her face was tight with disbelief and distress. "Ethan," she said, voice strained, "I know things have been tense lately, but you can't hurt people. This is too much." I didn't flinch. Calmly, I pointed upward. "Miss Sterling, before you accuse me, maybe take a look at the kitchen security cameras first." Sebastian froze. He hadn't planned for that. Panic flickered across his face, just for a second, but long enough to confirm everything. Just as Elena turned to check the footage, Sebastian lurched forward and grabbed her arm, his voice suddenly ragged and desperate. Elena, it hurts. Forget the cameras, please, just take me to the hospital." His cry was so loud and theatrical, it could have won an Emmy. Elena flinched, torn between skepticism and instinct. In the end, concern won out. She barked an order, and staff quickly rushed in to get him into the car. I watched him get wheeled out with all the dramatics of a Roman emperor under siege. I figured she'd be too distracted to check the footage right away, so I turned to Grace. "Make sure someone pulls the kitchen camera logs before he tries to erase them." Then I grabbed my coat and followed the chaos to the hospital. By the time we got to the ER, Sebastian had been wheeled into a curtained triage room. I stepped in a few minutes later, just in time to catch the tail end of something truly deranged. The room was momentarily quiet. No nurses around. Just Sebastian and a young doctor reviewing his vitals. Sebastian reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a sleek, black credit card, and shoved it into the doctor's hand like he was slipping a bribe at a poker table. "Here's the deal," he whispered, eyes darting to the hallway. "In a minute, I want you to say I'm in renal failure, kidneys shot. Tell Elena I need an emergency transplant. Then just take one from the guy who came in with me. That's all. You got it?" The doctor froze, hands still half raised in disbelief. His expression morphed from confusion, to horror, to something unreadable. Meanwhile, Sebastian leaned back, positively glowing with smug satisfaction. Like it was all handled. Then he waved to the nurse outside the door. "I'm ready. You can wheel me in now." Outside the exam room, Elena rushed up to the doctor the moment he appeared. "Doctor, how is he?" she asked, breath tight. "Is it serious? I can have specialists flown in from Boston tonight if needed." The doctor opened his mouth, then hesitated. Completely at a loss for words. Sebastian, catching the pause, shot him a vicious glare before quickly composing himself. With a raspy, calculated voice, he jumped in. The doctor says it's kidney failure. He glanced dramatically at me, then turned back to Elena. I need an urgent transplant. And you know what? I think Ethan's kidney would be perfect. He hurt me, after all, it's only fair he pays the price. Then he looked at me like a man who just flipped the final chess piece. Smug. Certain. Triumphant. As if he truly believed Elena would now turn to me and say, "You heard him. Hand it over." I could only blink at him, equal parts amused and horrified. Did he really think we were living in some soap opera universe where people could just order organs like room service? Elena's face, however, told a different story. Her expression darkened, her brow tight with disbelief as she turned to Sebastian. "Sebastian, stop it. That's not even remotely funny. Even if he was a match, which we have no idea if he is, you can't just take someone's organ because you feel wronged. That's illegal. And horrifying. What's wrong with you?" Sebastian's grin vanished. His lips parted, but no words came. He stood there, stunned, as the illusion shattered in real time, Elena staring at him like he'd just turned into a stranger. Because maybe, finally, he had. At that moment, the doctor seemed to finally snap out of his moral paralysis. He exhaled sharply, cleared his throat, and held something out to Elena. It was a bank card. "Ms. Sterling," he said carefully, "I need to be honest with you. Just a few minutes ago, Mr. Vale attempted to bribe me. He asked me to falsely declare he was in kidney failure, and then suggested I convince you to have Mr. Navarro's kidney harvested for a transplant." Elena's expression didn't shift, but something in the air around her turned cold. The doctor continued, clearly relieved to be saying it out loud. "Had I not overheard your response just now, I was about 2 seconds away from calling the police. But your understanding of the law gave me some hope that reason still exists in this room." He looked over at Sebastian, then back at Elena. "You might want to talk to Mr. Vale, seriously. This isn't just immature, it's dangerous. And frankly, it's an abuse of emergency care. Showing up with a blood pouch taped to your waist and screaming about kidney failure? That wastes critical time and resources for people who actually need help." With a shake of his head, the doctor turned and walked away. Just before he disappeared back into the triage room, I heard him mutter under his breath. "God help us. What is wrong with people these days? Watching too many damn dramas. And who tries to bribe someone with a credit card? If you're going to be shady, at least bring cash or a check." I nearly lost it. The laugh bubbled up in my chest, begging to come out. But then I caught a glimpse of Elena's face, and just barely managed to swallow it. Her expression had gone still. Cold. The anger was starting to settle in. And this time, it wasn't aimed at me. Sebastian, caught in the shadow of Elena's silent, disappointed stare, began to unravel. "Elena, look how much blood there is," he stammered, gesturing to the stain on his shirt. "There's no way that's fake. Don't listen to that doctor, he's clearly one of Ethan's friends. They're working together to make sure I don't get the transplant I need. You really want me to die from kidney failure over some misunderstanding?" Elena's temple was visibly throbbing. She opened her mouth to speak. But then my phone buzzed. A message from Grace. I glanced down and saw the thumbnail, the kitchen security footage. I tapped the video open and silently handed the phone to Elena. The screen showed everything in crisp, damning detail. Sebastian lunging for my knife. Tearing open the fake blood pouch strapped to his side. Collapsing in melodramatic agony, sobbing like a soap opera star. Elena watched the video through once. Then she handed the phone to Sebastian, holding it out like a mirror. "Now tell me again, what were you saying?" Sebastian's face turned ghost pale. But instead of backing down, he doubled down, voice trembling. "Elena, I know what I did was wrong, but I couldn't stand watching you keep looking at him like that. Like he matters. I'm the one you're with. I'm your boyfriend. Elena's eyes sharpened like glass. And I've told you, multiple times, she said, her voice cool and cutting, Ethan is my chef. He's not your stand-in. He's not your competition. He's not even playing the same game as you. That landed harder than anything else. Sebastian froze. The act, the whining, the guilt-tripping, it all collapsed. For the first time, he was speechless. Frozen in place, eyes wide with disbelief. Then Elena turned to me, her voice low and steady. Ethan. I'm sorry. I jumped to conclusions earlier. I should have known better. I let out a long sigh. This wasn't the first time Sebastian had dragged me into his nonsense. From the stand-in mix-up, to the birthday party disaster, to this latest stunt with the fake injury and organ theft accusation. I was hired to cook, not to co-star in a daytime soap. Ms. Sterling, I accept your apology, I said quietly. But I've decided to resign. Elena blinked, stunned, then quickly stepped forward. I can raise your salary. Double it, even. I'll handle Sebastian, he won't come near you again, I promise. I shook my head. It's not about the money. I'm a chef. That's all I ever wanted to be. I just want to cook in peace, not spend every day being mistaken for someone's replacement, or getting dragged into melodrama I never asked for. No matter how she pleaded, I stood firm. Eventually, Elena let out a weary breath, her shoulders sagging slightly. All right, she said. I respect your decision. Your final paycheck and compensation bonus will be wired to your account as soon as possible. Back at the estate, I packed quickly. Grace helped me fold the last of my clothes in silence, then finally muttered with a sigh. You leave, and what happens to me, huh? She gave me a look that was half joking, half tragic. Grace had been working in the Sterling household since Elena's parents ran it. This house was her life. Leaving? That wasn't in her vocabulary. And with Sebastian still lurking around, I knew she was genuinely worried. I gave Grace's shoulder a gentle pat. Grace, you're sighing too early, I said with a dry smile. Just wait until Ms. Sterling actually marries Sebastian, that's when the real trouble begins. Her face went pale. For a second, she looked like she might faint right there in the hallway. By the time I rolled my suitcase to the front steps, the house was quiet again. I paused at the door, casting one last glance back. Up on the second-floor balcony, Elena stood silently, watching me. Her expression was unreadable, part regret, part exhaustion, part something else. I raised a hand in casual farewell. She didn't wave back. But she didn't look away either. I turned, stepped into the waiting cab, and let the door shut behind me. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. No more ducking around corners. No more blood pouch dramatics. No more overgrown man-children trying to frame me for attempted organ theft. Just me, my knives, and a blissful lack of chaos. After settling back into my old apartment, I gave myself a well-earned break. I slept in until noon. Cooked whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. Spent hours tinkering with new recipes and techniques, no deadlines, no interruptions. For the first time in a long time. Life was good. I thought it was over. I really did. 3 blissful days had passed, no drama, no Sebastian, no chaos. Just silence, the hum of my stovetop, and the satisfying sound of my own breathing. Then my phone exploded. Ping after ping. Dozens of notifications flooding in at once. At first, I thought someone had died. Then a friend sent me a link with the caption. Bro, you need to see this. Now. I clicked. Trending on Twitter. Scheming stand-in boyfriend kicked out of the mansion, fled with luxury goods. My stomach dropped. The video opened with grainy, zoomed-in footage, me dragging my suitcase out of Elena's estate. The camera panned, intentionally, across the open luggage, lingering on a designer bag and an expensive-looking watch nestled inside. Sebastian's caption read like a melodramatic tabloid headline. I was gone for 3 months in California. And while I was away, someone tried to be me. Seduced Elena. Moved into my life. Bought luxury items with her money. I exposed him, and this is how he ran, like a guilty thief. You tell me, shouldn't I take it all back? The comments were already spiraling. This is straight-up daytime TV. I'm obsessed. Scamming your way into someone else's girlfriend and closet? Trash behavior. Poor Sebastian. Can't believe that guy just slipped into his life like that. He should return everything. That's stolen property. I was still scrolling when a new notification popped up. Unknown number. Seen the tweets yet, Ethan? Be smart. Return everything Elena gave you, or I'll make sure this goes viral for real. Sebastian. I stared at the message for a long moment. And then? I laughed. Not a bitter laugh. Not even angry. Just stunned. Because the sheer audacity was so far beyond anything I could have expected, it was almost impressive. Almost. Those so-called luxury goods? Yeah, I bought them. With my money. From my salary. Because when you're making $8 million a year as a private chef, a couple of designer bags and a watch aren't exactly out of reach. I was just about to fire off a reply when my phone rang again. Not Sebastian this time. Elena. I picked up. Her voice came through, laced with guilt. Ethan, I saw the tweets. I'm so sorry, it's Sebastian again. I've already spoken to my PR team. We'll issue a formal statement and sue anyone who's spreading misinformation. We'll handle it. I cut her off gently but firmly. That won't be necessary. If you speak up, it'll only make things worse. They'll say I am your stand-in. That you're protecting me. That there's something to hide. Let me handle it. On my own terms. Before she could argue, I ended the call. Then I opened my laptop. First, I posted a screenshot of my official employment contract, complete with a company letterhead and Elena's signature. The line for salary was crystal clear. Annual compensation, $8 million US. Position, private culinary consultant and estate chef. Next, I uploaded every receipt for the so-called luxury items Sebastian had tried to weaponize. Each one marked with purchase dates, exact amounts, and my personal bank card as the payment method. Then I wrote my caption. My name is Ethan Navarro. I was hired by Ms. Elena Sterling as a private chef under a legally binding contract. Annual salary, $8 million US. The luxury goods in question were purchased by me, with my own income, after starting this position. No runaway, no theft. Just clean work, clean earnings. I am not anyone's stand-in. I cook. I don't act. To those spreading lies, get your facts straight. I hit post. Let the truth do what it does best. The moment I hit post, the comments section went dead quiet. For about 5 seconds. Then? All hell broke loose. Wait, hold on. Did he say $8 million a year? For a chef? Bro, that's not a stand-in, that's a unicorn. Yeah, okay, I take back everything I said. If I made that kind of money, I'd be buying way more than a designer bag. So, Sebastian just made all this up. What a bizarre hill to die on. But what I really didn't expect were the retweets. And not just from random accounts. From some of the most powerful names in the city. Daniel Martinez, heir to the Martinez Group, chimed in first. Mr. Navarro's culinary skill is absolutely Michelin 3-star level. My mother hasn't stopped asking when we can hire him full-time. And $8 million a year? Trust me, it's a bargain. Then came Victor Garcia, of Garcia Group fame. Still dreaming about that truffle steak Mr. Navarro served at the Sterling event. If he ever opens a restaurant, I'm booking the first 10 seats. No question. And finally, Marcus Reed, head of Reed Group. Anyone spreading lies about Ethan Navarro should take a seat. If he's a fraud, what does that make the rest of us, who've been fighting to hire him? The tone had shifted. Drastically. What had started as a character assassination attempt was now spiraling into a full-blown chef fan club. And Sebastian? Well, let's just say. His little Twitter stunt had backfired spectacularly. With the billionaire endorsements rolling in, the comments section flipped like a light switch. If the Martinez, Garcia, and Reed families are backing him, Navarro must be the real deal. Chef Ethan, please open a restaurant. I will literally wait in line for 3 days. I don't care. He gets mistaken for someone else, framed, harassed, and still handles it like a professional. That's class. I scrolled, smiling. Not just because I'd cleared my name. But because, somehow, Sebastian's smear campaign had turned into free publicity. A nationwide ad campaign, at his expense. I was just about to reply to a few fans, maybe tease the idea of a high-end restaurant, when a new message lit up my phone. No name. Just an anonymous number. I hesitated. Then tapped it open. Attached were several photos, and one audio file. The first image showed Sebastian in a California hospital, standing beside a visibly pregnant woman during an ultrasound. The second, a signed medical consent form for a pregnancy termination. His signature was clear. But it was the recording that sealed it. You think I went to Cali to relax? Hell no. Got drunk, made a mess, ended up knocking someone up. Had to sneak her out here to deal with it. Meanwhile, Elena? That idiot thinks I just needed some space. Visits me every week like a loyal girlfriend. What can I say? That's the power of charm. I raised an eyebrow. Well then. Gift-wrapped ammunition. Dropped right in my lap. If Sebastian had made it clear he wouldn't stop until I was ruined. Then I saw no reason to keep playing nice. I masked the images and redacted the woman's identity, then uploaded everything anonymously. Just one line of text. A certain someone claims to be Elena Sterling's devoted boyfriend, but what exactly was he doing these past 3 months in California? The internet didn't just react. It detonated. Within hours, Sebastian's carefully crafted narrative was shredded. The ultrasound. The clinic form. The voice recording. Receipts. Names. Tone. It all checked out. Sympathy for Sebastian evaporated instantly. So this is what he was doing while pretending to be betrayed? Manipulative and reckless, classic narcissist energy. Gaslit Elena and tried to frame Ethan? He's done. Across the country, Elena was still away on business. But when she finally got a break between meetings, she glanced up from her desk. What's the internet saying about Ethan now? She asked her assistant, flipping through notes. If people are still talking trash, have legal shut it down. Her assistant, Mia, hesitated. No one's coming after Mr. Navarro anymore. She paused. But you should probably see this. She handed Elena her phone. Elena scrolled through the headlines. The tweets. The screenshots. The photos. The audio. The signature. Her brow tightened with every word. She closed her laptop. Cancelled her final meeting. and caught the next flight home. By the time she stepped into the house, it was well past midnight. She didn't even bother taking off her coat. She walked straight into the living room, threw her phone onto the table, and glared at Sebastian, who was halfway through a whiskey. Her voice was low, flat, cold. "Sebastian. What the hell is this?" He picked up the phone, saw the headline, then the pictures, then the waveform of his own voice. His face went sheet white. "It's Ethan. He set me up. This is all fake, he must have edited." "Really?" Elena cut him off, her voice brittle with disgust. "The pregnancy form has your signature. The audio is your voice. And you're still lying?" The last word hit like a hammer. And this time, there was no pity behind her eyes. Just disappointment. Deep. Heavy. Final. Elena didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "I was wrong about you," she said, each word heavy and final. "Grace, pack his things. Make sure he's off the property tonight. And from now on, he's not to set foot in this house again." Sebastian stood there for a beat, stunned. Then, slowly, he started to laugh. That same smug, delusional laugh he always used when he thought he still had the upper hand. "Right. Of course. This is the part in the story where the main couple gets manipulated by the stand-in and ends up torn apart by lies. But don't worry, Elena. You'll come crawling back." He pointed to the door as if imagining the grand finale. "One day you'll realize it's me you love, not him. And when that day comes, I won't be so forgiving." He packed with flair, like a soap opera lead making a dramatic exit from a mansion he still believed was his. Shoulders squared. Head high. Not once did he look back. Elena watched him go. And as the door finally slammed shut behind him, she exhaled a long, quiet breath. Not one of relief. But something closer to resignation. She glanced around the now still house. No drama. No shouting. No schemes. Just the soft tick of the grandfather clock in the foyer, and the faint echo of a silence she hadn't heard in years. And for the first time in a long time, she missed the sound of someone cooking in the kitchen. Elena hesitated for a long time before finally pressing call. When I picked up, her voice came softly through the line. "Ethan. I just wanted to say sorry again. About everything with Sebastian." My tone stayed even. "Ms. Sterling, you've already apologized once. I doubt this call was just about that." There was a pause. Then a quiet laugh, almost self-conscious. "You really don't let anything slip past you, do you?" She exhaled slowly, then said what she'd really called for. "I've been reading the comments online. The reviews. The demand. So. I wanted to ask if you've ever considered opening a high-end restaurant. I'll fund it. Fully. You won't have to put in a cent. And the profits, all yours." I blinked, caught off guard. Then I let out a laugh. "This your way of hiring me back through the side door, Ms. Sterling?" "No," she said quickly, maybe a little too quickly. "I just think more people should get to experience your cooking." A beat passed before she added, quieter. "And, well, my stomach still refuses to cooperate with anyone else's food." I thought about it. Truth be told, opening a restaurant had always been part of the plan, someday. And if someone wanted to fund it, hands off? Why not now? "All right," I said. "But I have one condition. You don't get to interfere with how I run it. No investor input. No backseat chefing. And if you want a table, I'll make a reservation like everyone else," she cut in, laughing. Deal. With Elena's backing, the launch was a smash. Word spread fast, boosted by the drama that had once tried to destroy me. Tables booked out months in advance. Critics raved. Influencers posted. Billionaires waited. And through it all, I cooked. No disguises. No scandals. No drama. Just food. Exactly the way I'd always wanted it. To her credit, Elena honored every part of our agreement. She never once meddled in the restaurant's operations. Never tried to pull rank. And when it came time to eat, she waited, like everyone else. No private table. No skipping the line. Just her, showing up 3 times a day, same as she used to when I was cooking for her at the estate. Only this time, there was no Sebastian. No passive-aggressive glances. No tantrums in the foyer. No fake injuries. Just peace. One afternoon, somewhere between lunch and prep for dinner service, I finally asked her. Why hasn't Sebastian come back? Not even once? She paused, setting her fork down slowly. Her expression soured like she'd just bitten into something bitter. Before he left, she said, voice dry, he told me that the storyline was entering the part where the main couple is torn apart by the stand-in, only to eventually reunite. She gave a short, humorless laugh. He really thought I'd wake up one day, realize I loved him all along, and chase him down for a reconciliation arc. I raised an eyebrow. That's impressively delusional. She sighed. Yeah. Sebastian always thought he was the protagonist. But honestly, he was just the noise between scenes. After that, we never mentioned him again. We didn't need to. Instead, a new rhythm took hold. Every time Elena came in, she brought something small. Sometimes it was a wildflower from the roadside, tucked between her pages of contracts. Other times, it was a piece of understated jewelry, something she thought would go well with the kitchen whites, she'd say, without meeting my eyes. She never made a big deal of it. She never explained the gifts. And I never asked. But they came, day after day. Not grand. Not dramatic. Just enough to say, I'm here. I haven't forgotten. One afternoon, as Elena set another small gift box on the host stand, I couldn't help but tease her, grinning as I folded my arms. You know, I said, when you first hired me, I cost you $8 million a year. Now you wait in line, pay full price, and still bring me presents. At this rate, you're spending way more than that original contract. She laughed, soft and unbothered. As long as you like them, it's worth it. And then she looked at me. Not like a boss. Not like a client. But with something warmer. Something that made my heart thump once, then again, faster. I couldn't look away. 6 months passed in a steady rhythm of meals, glances, and the quiet gravity of 2 people orbiting closer each day. Until one evening, she arrived for dinner carrying something different. A bouquet of deep red roses. She set them down like it was nothing, like she hadn't just flipped the entire script. I didn't touch them. Instead, I asked gently, you know what roses mean, don't you? Elena nodded without missing a beat. They mean, she said, eyes holding mine, that everything I have is yours to manage. Including the bank accounts. My lips curled into a slow smile. Well, I said, how could I say no to that? I took the roses. She took my hand. Things moved fast after that. Not rushed. Just certain. We planned the wedding for a sun-drenched Saturday. The guest list? Small and perfect, just close friends, a few beloved regulars from the restaurant, and people who had seen us grow from chaos into calm. The chef married the CEO. No scandals. No stand-ins. Just us. And afterward, we didn't throw rice or pop champagne. We walked back into the kitchen together. And made dinner. For each other. I stood in the quiet of the groom's lounge, adjusting my tie and reviewing my vows one last time. Grace sat nearby, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, trying, and failing, not to ruin her makeup. "You have no idea," she sniffled, "how relieved I was when I heard Miss Sterling was marrying you and not Sebastian. I swear, if she'd ended up with him, I'd be living in constant darkness." I chuckled, remembering the half-joke I'd once made to her while packing my bags. She clearly hadn't forgotten. Her joy now was real, tinged with something that looked a lot like redemption. But her words made me pause. I hadn't thought about Sebastian in months. I didn't know where he was, what he was doing, or if he'd ever moved on. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a sliver of unease. That unease became something else entirely the moment Elena and I stood hand in hand, center aisle, ready to exchange our vows. Sunlight poured through the tall windows. A soft string quartet played in the background. She smiled up at me. I smiled back. The officiant cleared his throat. "Do you, Ethan Navarro?" Bang! The chapel doors slammed open. Gasps echoed through the pews. Sebastian staggered into the hall, wild-eyed, hair unkempt, suit wrinkled, like he'd been living out of a motel and hadn't slept in days. But what stopped the music? What sent a cold bolt down my spine? Was the glass bottle in his hand. "Ethan," he screamed. "You lying, thieving stand-in. You stole her from me, and now you're trying to marry her?" His voice cracked as he charged forward, eyes locked on me, rage unhinged. "You should have died the day you walked into our lives." The bottle glinted in the light. It wasn't wine. It wasn't water. It was sulfuric acid. I moved. But I didn't have to. Elena's security team had been in position the entire time. She'd known better than to assume the past would stay buried. The moment Sebastian took his second step, two men in black suits intercepted him. He screamed. Thrashed. Tried to hurl the bottle anyway. They knocked it from his hand before it ever left his grip. It shattered against the marble floor, hissing as the acid scorched the tile. The smell was sharp and caustic. The chapel fell silent. Except for the guards' radios, and Sebastian's howling sobs. As the police pulled him away, Sebastian thrashed against the cuffs, still shouting, still lost in a script that no one else was reading from. "Why? I'm supposed to be the male lead. It's supposed to be me and Elena, fighting through misunderstandings, finally finding happiness. That's the story." His screams echoed off the high ceilings like the final lines of a tragic monologue. No curtain call. No applause. Just a hard reality swallowing him whole. I watched him disappear through the chapel doors, his voice growing smaller, more desperate. And I sighed. Even now, he still hadn't stepped out of the show in his head. Even now, he still believed the credits hadn't rolled. Elena stood beside me, gripping my hand tightly as we looked down at the shattered bottle on the floor, the acidic sting still faintly in the air. "Are you okay?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, then smiled, couldn't help it. "I'm fine," I said, giving her hand a squeeze. "Though I'm starting to think Sebastian might have been right about one thing." She raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "That you're the female lead in a drama. Smart, powerful, beautiful, makes perfect sense." She rolled her eyes, then leaned in and kissed me. "If that's true," she said softly, "then you've always been my one and only male lead." We laughed quietly. The officiant cleared his throat. We turned back toward the altar. And in front of the people who had witnessed our worst days, we gave each other our best. As the ring slid into place, the room erupted into applause. It was done. We were home. Married life was simple. Warm. Steady. With no more ghosts in the hallway and no more acid in the air, Elena's stomach finally healed. Her daily joy became lingering in the kitchen beside me, tasting dishes, arguing about salt. The restaurant thrived, reservation lists packed for months, but I still insisted on developing every dish myself. One morning, during a press interview, a young journalist, eager to stir something, leaned in with a smirk. "Mr. Navarro, would you say your success today is due to being the stand-in who won the girl and got the empire?" A pause. Elena's face darkened beside me, already preparing to step in. But I held up a hand, smiled, and looked the reporter right in the eye. "I've never been a stand-in for anyone," I said. "And my success? It comes down to something simple. I'm just a guy who loves to cook." And somehow, that had been enough. Enough to start over. Enough to be chosen. Enough to write my own ending. Or maybe, my beginning.